Hafade. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Guam Congress building. And thank you for being here today. I'm Senator Therese Terlaje. I will be chairing this public hearing on resolution number 132-38. We're now calling this to order. It's Wednesday, January 7, 2026, and the time is 8:37 a.m. In compliance with the open government law, notice for this public hearing was published in the Guam Daily Post and posted to the Government of Guam public notice portal on Monday, December 29 and Monday, January 5th, 2026. Notice was also sent by email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. This hearing is being live streamed on the Guam Legislature's YouTube channel. Individuals testifying will first be recognized by the chair before speaking. Please state your name for the record. We are going to transcribe these proceedings so we can be clear who's speaking at the time. This hearing will be transcribed word for word so that we have an accurate record of that is made available to all of the public and for future generations as well. If you testify verbally and would like to also submit in writing so that your transcription is correct, you may do so. All written testimony, please submit that by noon tomorrow, Thursday, because we, according to the speaker, might go into emergency session on Friday to consider this resolution. So we're going to submit the committee report by tomorrow to the Committee on Rules Chair. We're going to, we have a lot of people signed up to testify, so we're going to go through all of the testimony before we open up to the panel for questions or comments. And there's another hearing this afternoon, so my goal is to be done by 12 noon. And I know that's an ambitious goal, but we're going to try to do that. But I know this is a very important topic, but we're trying to fit it into the previously scheduled events for the legislature. All right, resolution number 132-38 is sponsored by myself, Senator Sabina Flores Perez, Senator Telo Taitague, Senator Chris Barnett, Senator Anthony Ada, Senator William Parkinson, Senator Vincent Borja, Senator Joseph Agustin, Senator Shelly Calvo, and Senator Tina Rose Muña Barnes. It's relative to reaffirming the Guam Legislature's call for a moratorium on deep-sea mining in protection of the legal, economic, social, cultural, and environmental rights of the people of Guam, and objecting to the proposal and request for information, or the RFI, by the United States Department of Interior's Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, or BOEM. You'll be hearing that referred to as BOEM today, for commercial leasing for outer continental shelf minerals offshore the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues who are here today with me, of course, with Speaker Frank Blas, Vice Speaker Tony Ada, Senator Sean Gumatatos, Senator Shelly Calvo, Senator Joseph Agustin, my colleague Senator Chris Barnett, and Senator Telo Taitague. Thank you, colleagues, for being here. So this resolution was introduced in response to the RFI by BOEM and Department of Interior, which, according to BOEM, is, quote, the first steps that could potentially lead to a lease sale for minerals on the outer continental shelf offshore the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. BOEM initially sought comments to this RFI by December 12, 2025, only allowing a 30-day comment period. The insufficient time frame for public comment elicited a joint request by Governor of Guam and CNMI for a 120-day extension for comments in order to provide comprehensive and informed feedback on a matter with wide-ranging environmental, economic, cultural, and jurisdictional implications. BOEM instead extended the comment period till January 12th, which is next Monday. I've requested an emergency session for the legislature to deliberate and act on Resolution 138 before this deadline, and I've unofficially been notified by the speaker that he will be calling us in so we can vote on the resolution as a legislature as a whole before we send it into BOEM as our official stance. I know that many senators in their individual capacities have also submitted comments to BOEM as well. In 2021, the 36th Guam legislature affirmed its stance through resolution number 210-36, introduced by Senator Sabina Perez. And that resolution was urging to, quote, protect ocean ecosystems from environmental harm and exploitative industry interests by calling on the United States to support and implement a moratorium on deep seabed mining in the U.S. exclusive economic zone. Thank you. I'd like to thank Senator Perez for leading us years ago in this hard work and in drafting that resolution and that resolved by the legislature that was passed unanimously. So this resolution today, if passed, represents the 38th Guam legislature's reaffirmation of this stance. The area in BOEM's RFI stretches approximately 35,483,000 plus acres and lies west of the Marianas Trench National Monument. And while the RFI primarily names a CNMI, it also notes that, quote, the southern boundary of the RFI area is approximately equal distance between the islands of Guam and Rota, the southernmost island of the CNMI, unquote. The proximity of the RFI area underscores the potential for offshore mineral leasing activity in the designated area to have transboundary impacts across the entire Mariana archipelago. This resolution follows the expertise and outline of comments submitted to BOEM by the law firm Blue Ocean Law and attorney Julian Uggen. Blue Ocean Law has extensive experience in international law and has monitored deep sea mining and related governance issues for more than a decade. Their comments highlight some of the environmental and ecological risk, the social, cultural, and economic impacts, and the legal defects of BOEM's RFI under international law and domestic law. This resolution also shares some of the concerns that were passed by the CNMI's House of Representatives in their resolution to BOEM, highlighting the concerns of the CNMI legislature. Given all of this, it is imperative that the voices of affected communities, experts, cultural practitioners, and stakeholders be fully heard, and that is the purpose of this hearing. So again, I thank you all for being here. All right, so we will begin. Thank you all for being here at this early hour. Again, we're trying to fit into the legislature's predetermined schedule. All right, and so we're going to begin with attorney Julian Uggen.
Hafade, my name is Julian Uggen. I'm a lawyer and a concerned citizen. I am here in support of this resolution. The deep sea mining envisioned for the waters around Guam and the CNMI is not simply an industrial proposal. It is a profound decision about power, responsibility, and whether extreme and irreversible ecological destruction is something we are willing to sanction in the name of speculative gain. My firm, Blue Ocean Law, has submitted extensive written comments opposing the proposal by the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management to open these waters to deep sea mining. We conclude that BOEM's request for information, or RFI, and the process it rolls out are legally deficient, scientifically unsound, and incompatible with the rights and interests of the peoples of the Marianas. The proposal violates numerous domestic and international laws, including the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act, the Coastal Zone Management Act, the National Environmental Policy Act, the Endangered Species Act, the National Historic Preservation Act, the Administrative Procedure Act, the United Nations Charter, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, and, most flagrantly, the fundamental right to self-determination and the associated right to permanent sovereignty over natural resources. Because these legal defects are documented in detail in our written comments, which are now publicly available, I will not recount all of them here. Instead, I want to focus on one violation that stands at the center of this federal proposal and that alone should end it. That is, the violation of the right to self-determination. The RFI rests on a deeply flawed assumption that the United States may unilaterally authorize seabed mineral extraction in the waters off Guam and the CNMI without consultation or consent from their peoples. That assumption is legally untenable. For decades, the United Nations has repeatedly affirmed that the peoples of dependent and non-self-governing territories possess permanent sovereignty over their natural resources. This principle is considered a core component of the right to self-determination, and it is well settled. It is also explicitly recognized by the UN General Assembly as applying to the waters around Guam. The General Assembly has reiterated this point again and again in resolutions respecting the, quote, question of Guam. Since at least 1976, it has affirmed that the Chamorro people's inalienable right to, quote, own, enjoy, control, and dispose of Guam's natural resources, including marine resources, and has further instructed the United States to safeguard that right. Those instructions are explicit and they remain in force today. What this means is that the marine resources in the waters around Guam are the heritage of the people of Guam. They are not, in fact, assets that the federal government may dispose of at will. The United States, as Guam's administering power, has a legal duty to protect those resources from exploitation and abuse, and to ensure they are used only in accordance with the freely expressed wishes of the people. Any action that deprives a non-self-governing people of control over these same resources violates that duty. International courts have reached the same conclusion. The International Court of Justice has repeatedly confirmed that permanent sovereignty over natural resources is a principle of customary international law, and that the exploitation of resources in a non-self-governing territory or dependent territory must reflect the genuine wishes of and benefit its people. Exploitation of those resources for the benefit of others, to include the administering power itself, is categorically unlawful. Yet, that is precisely what is being proposed here. Guam would receive no control, no meaningful consultation, and no share in the benefits, while bearing all the environmental, cultural, and food security risks. In short, the authority claimed by BOEM is authority the United States does not possess, i.e., the authority to unilaterally dispose of resources that international law clearly recognizes as ours, not theirs. To approve any conclusion to the contrary would drain the right of self-determination of any remaining meaning, and it would destroy the distinction between administration on the one hand and outright domination on the other. I would like to end my remarks today by inviting you to imagine these resources not as assets to be monetized and mined, but instead as a living archive of culture, history, and memory, and a bounty to be bequeathed to future generations and to a future self-governing Guam. It is my great hope, should we ever close the colonial chapter and join the sisterhood of nations, that ours will choose differently. Choose restraint over extraction, care over conquest, and dignity over dispossession. This resolution makes that choice legible now, even without the power to decide the outcome. Thank you.
Sidusmasi, Attorney Uggan. Thank you for all your work. Mr. Edwin Regis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If it's okay, I'll cover a written testimony from our director who is not able to be here, and then shift to the coastal management program's role in terms of applying the federal consistency provisions of the Coastal Zone Management Act. Thank you. Thank you again, Honorable Senator Terlaje and members of the 30th Guam Legislature. I'm going to summarize BSP Director Loli Guerrero's testimony. She's not able to be here, but is very passionate about this issue. BSP supports this resolution 32-38, which reaffirms Guam's call for a moratorium on deep sea mining and objects to the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management's request for information regarding commercial leasing for outer continental shelf mining minerals offshore off the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. The proposed mining site is situated approximately 120 miles from Guam. Models from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Pacific Island Ocean Observing System in 2024 indicated that the sediment plumes resulting from seabed disruption could dispense hundreds of kilometers, potentially reaching Guam's coastal ecosystem within a matter of weeks. Such an impact could pose significant threats to the biodiversity of the Marianas Trench and the surrounding seamounts, which are globally recognized hotspots, and could consequently compromise the ecosystem functions within Guam's exclusive economic zone. These impacts could present a serious threat to the livelihoods of our local fishermen and could compromise Guam's food security. These documented risks underscore the resolution's finding regards to the direct and indirect harm to our surrounding waters. In light of these documented and imminent threats, the lack of comprehensive studies by the federal agencies is deemed unacceptable. BSP further asserts that BOEM has not provided the necessary scientific evidence, environmental studies, or cultural impact assessments required to fully evaluate the environmental and economic impacts of deep-sea mining in this region. We strongly oppose any proceedings that fail to integrate the traditional and indigenous knowledge systems of our people. BSP therefore supports the legislature's adoption of Resolution 132-38 and formally calls upon the United States Congress, the Department of Interior, and BOEM to institute a suspension of the RFI docket number BOEM 2025-0315. A precautionary moratorium is warranted and should remain in effect until such time a comprehensive environmental, statistical, and cultural impact assessments are completed, integrating both established scientific research and relevant indigenous knowledge systems. Signed, Lola E. Leon Guerrero, Director of the Bureau of Statistics and Plans. From the federal consistency standpoint, the Guam Coastal Management Program has a specific function as it relates to federal activities. The CZMA is a federal and territorial partnership in which federal activities must be consistent with Guam's enforceable policies. As we are looking at this specific RFI, this is an information gathering stage, but the subsequent actions for permitting and leasing will be fully reviewable by the Guam Coastal Management Program federal consistency authorizations. What I can say, and I'm going to ask Ms. Esther Taitague to give you information on our initial assessment of the RFI, is that various subparts of the CZMA that's going to be related to environmental analysis, the proposed leasing notices, and any future leasing plans will be subject to several provisions of the CZMA Subpart C, Subpart D, and Subpart E. What we are here to convey is our commitment to make sure that we reach back to the national expertise and our regional expertise that provides scientific information and policy advice to help us navigate the best way possible through this federal action, and that we will be resolute in standing firm and applying our due processes representing Guam's enforceable policies. And with that, I'll ask Ms. Esther Taitague to give you an overview of our the information that we shared in this RFI. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good morning. My name is Esther Taitague. I'm the Senior Planner with the Guam Coastal Management Program, Bureau of Statistics and Plans. My role was to provide comments to the RFI. So the Bureau of Statistics and Plans has submitted formal comments to the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, BOEM, in response to its RFI regarding potential commercial seabed mining leases offshore the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Our key points of concerns, we noted firm opposition to seabed mining. GCMP respectfully but unequivocally calls on BOEM to categorically reject seabed mining proposals in the region. Critical threats to Guam seabed mining poses irreversible risks to Guam's tourism-driven economy and to the cultural heritage of the Chamorro people. We noted environmental concerns. The Marianas Trench and surrounding ecosystems are globally significant treasures of biodiversity and cultural heritage. Seabed mining would cause direct and permanent damage, including habitat destruction, biodiversity loss, and sediment plume generation. Regional ocean current modeling, PAC-IUs, indicates sediment plumes from CNMI lease areas would likely drift toward Guam, smothering coral reefs and fishery habitats. We noted cultural significance. The ocean holds profound spiritual and social meaning for the Chamorro people, rooted in the worldview of inafamalik, harmony and interdependence. We also noted economic impact. Guam's economy depends heavily on tourism, which thrives on pristine marine environments. In 2024, tourism generated $1.4 billion in economic activity and accounted for 28% of private sector employment. Ecological damage from seabed mining would translate into substantial economic losses across tourism and related industries. Our recommendations to BOEM. GCMP, Bureau of Statistics and Plans, has urged BOEM to deny seabed mining leases and permits in CNMI and Guam waters. Require robust royalty and compensatory mitigation programs managed by the government of Guam if leases are granted. Support international recognition of the Marianas Trench as a protected ecological and cultural heritage site. Mandate cultural impact assessments alongside environmental impact assessments. Comply fully with NEPA obligations by completing a comprehensive environmental impact statement and engage the government of Guam as a participating agency. Thank you for your time. Sizos Masi.
Sizos Masi, Ms. Taitague.
And on one last note, in terms of the CZMA federal consistency, one of the actions that we'll be pursuing is to ensure that BOEM recognizes that this activity does have an impact and reasonable and foreseeable effect in Guam's coastal waters. Right now, the RFI and the subsequent actions are related to CNMI's federal consistency provisions. So we're going to make sure that we ensure that BOEM recognizes Guam's sovereign representation in these waters. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sizos Masi, and for your work as well. And can we did you submit that in writing to us as well? Can we get a copy?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Send it to you.
All right, and now former Senator Carlotta Leon Guerrero.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the legislature. I'm here representing the governor's office, and we are in support of the resolution before us, 132. The role that the governor has played of late has been in trying very quickly to gather information to come up with a position, first a position for the administration, and then more broadly, she reached out to the speaker, the congressman, and the ranking member of the legislature. And this was done quickly over the holidays, because this is the time frame that we are forced into in the comment and response period. And so the leaders felt that it was very important to get a statement out there while everybody's being asked to come up with comments that would reflect how the leadership felt. So it was a very meaningful discussion, and then they all participated in a document, a unified position opposing the BOEM RFI, and that document is a public document. It was set off. So I think it's in total support of the work that has been done by this legislature in 2021 and what is being done today. And if the speaker does have the session in the next day or so to show the unified position. Also, to give you an idea, we are meeting with the mayors at 10 o'clock, and we have worked with Mayor Alec, and a resolution also coming from the mayors to back what is being done here. So to have all the leaders of Guam in a unified position is what the governor and the speaker and the congressman have been working towards, and we feel that we've achieved that, and we feel that it's very important. On something else I wanted to add to this discussion is when I first entered into this, it just felt like it was coming at us all at once and so fast. And I quickly joined all these webinars and to try to gain as much information as possible. And what I learned calmed me down in the tiniest bit, and that it's a marathon, not a sprint. When you heard what Julian just outlined, the laws that are in violation, you can imagine that every one of them is going to somehow, some way be a brake, putting the brakes on this. This is not clear sailing by any means. And to give you an idea of what's going on out there is I would turn to the Cook Islands. When I was up at Adelut before, I was paying attention to what the Cook Islands was doing. The Cook Islands, as long ago as 15, 16 years ago, was leading the Pacific in trying to responsibly exploit their natural resources, is the best way to describe it. They were further out than any other Pacific jurisdiction. And when the governor and lieutenant governor would go to Pacific Island forums, we'd go to different meetings, their prime minister would speak with confidence on the pathway that they were on. And they were trying so hard to convince other Pacific leaders that this was the pathway to go. Well, just recently, in the last month, the Cook Islands has put on the brakes in a very big way. They were going to issue leases in 2027, but now they said that they're not going to begin issuing leases until 2032. And everybody that has been on the starting line now has to start over with new permits, new scientific analysis, baselines, et cetera. And the quote from the Cook Islands is, "We are not ready at this time. We do not have enough scientific information to go down this and to issue this." So the one that was the furthest, with great confidence for the longest time, is now slammed on the brakes. So I just wanted to add that. I think all of us here are going to try to add different information to kind of round out the knowledge that we have. So once again, full support, and I'm looking forward to this session. Thank you.
Sizus Masi, Senator Carlotta, and thank you as well to the governor for allowing her office to be present here. I think that's very important. Thank you. Now I'll hear from Gita.
Thank you. Hafaday and good morning, Senator Terlaje and members of the 38th Legislature. The purpose of this letter is to provide written testimony in full support of Resolution number 132-38. The Guam Economic Development Authority shares the sentiments of Governor Lulian Guerrero and Lieutenant Governor Josh Chenero regarding the RFI by BOEM to potentially engage in deep-sea mining offshore the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. We need to state, however, that the RFI area directly affects both the CNMI and Guam's marine ecosystem. As BOEM's notice states, the southern boundary of the RFI area is approximately equal distance between the islands of Guam and Rota, the southernmost island of the CNMI. Gita believes more time is needed to properly understand the scope and impact deep-sea mining will have on our oceans and our island. An endeavor of this magnitude requires ample time to receive the input and perspective of our local government and our residents. Decisions made regarding deep seabed mining cannot be made without ensuring the welfare, prosperity, and safety of Guam and its people. GITA supports responsible economic development that aligns with the long-term interests of the people of Guam. In reviewing matters with potential development implications, GITA recognizes the need to consider all environmental, cultural, regulatory, and related factors. Accordingly, GITA supports the intent of this resolution. Thank you again for allowing GITA to provide this written testimony in support of the resolution.
Sizus Masi, Ms. Garcia, CEO, GITA. Mr. Shelton? Dr. Shelton.
Hafide, good morning. Thank you, Senator Terlaje, for the invitation to provide testimony, and for Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice Speaker, honorable senators, thank you for your time. My name is Agustin Shelton. I'm a marine and environmental scientist, and I serve as the director of the University of Guam Center for Island Sustainability and Sea Grant. Our center conducts applied science, engages the community, and provides decision support for our island communities. My testimony today is offered in that capacity as an honest broker of information rather than as a policy advocate. The Bureau of Ocean Energy Management's request for information regarding potential deep-sea mining activities in the Mariana region raises several scientific, economic, and governance considerations that merit careful examination before any further action is contemplated. From a scientific perspective, it is important to acknowledge that deep-sea ecosystems remain among the least studied environments on Earth. It is often noted within scientific communities that we have higher resolution maps of the surface of the moon than we do of large portions of the ocean floor. As a result, significant uncertainties remain regarding ecosystem function, recovery timelines, sediment plume behavior, acoustic disturbance, and connectivity between deep-sea habitats and the shallower marine systems that support fisheries and food security. In most fields, we study first and act later. Decisions related to the deep sea, the deep ocean, test our ability to maintain that discipline. From a process standpoint, the structure and short timeline of the current federal RFI present challenges for meaningful participation by island jurisdictions. Complex technical materials, limited local analytical capacity, and the need for culturally appropriate consultation all require time. For decisions with long-term, potentially irreversible consequences, adequate time for scientific review and community engagement is not simply procedural, it is foundational to sound governance. There are also important economic questions that remain unresolved. While deep-sea mining is often discussed in terms of strategic minerals and national or global supply chains, there is limited publicly available information on how economic benefits would accrue to the people of Guam and the rest of the Mariana Islands. Recent media reporting has indicated that representatives of deep-sea mining interests have described local benefit sharing arrangements that may be minimal, with figures cited as low as a small percentage of overall profits. Whether or not those figures ultimately prove accurate, they highlight a broader issue. At present, there is insufficient clarity regarding revenue sharing, job creation, long-term economic diversification, or compensation for environmental risk borne by island communities. From an analytical standpoint, it is difficult to weigh potential impacts without a clear understanding of how benefits would be distributed locally or regionally, what economic risks or opportunity costs may exist for fisheries, tourism, or cultural practices, who would be responsible for long-term monitoring, mitigation, or remediation. Without this information, claims of economic benefit remain largely theoretical. In addition, areas under consideration may intersect with traditional navigation routes, ancestral seafloor spaces, and historically significant sites, including World War II shipwrecks. These values are not always easily quantified in economic or environmental models, but they are central to how island communities understand stewardship, heritage, and responsibility. Finally, it is important to recognize that decisions about deep-sea mining are inherently intergenerational. The consequences, ecological, cultural, and economic, will extend well beyond current policy cycles. This places a premium on precaution, transparency, and the integration of the best available science and local knowledge before irreversible steps are taken. In closing, my intent today is not to recommend a specific outcome, but to emphasize the importance of ensuring that any consideration of deep-sea mining is formed by robust, independent scientific research, clear and credible economic analysis, including local benefit distribution, adequate time and capacity for territorial and community engagement, and thoughtful consideration of cultural, historical, and cumulative impacts. These elements are essential if decision makers are to evaluate this issue with the seriousness it warrants. Finally, I'd like to invite all the members of the legislature and the members of the public to join us tonight for a public outreach event for comment generation on the BOEM RFI. We'll have Attorney Julian Uggen and the Director of Operations from Blue Ocean Law, Isa Areola, who is also here, Dr. Sean McDuff, the Superintendent of the Mariana Trench National Monument, and Dr. Jeff Drazen, a deep-sea ecologist from the University of Hawaii, who is also in the room today. They'll be speaking to provide more information to support the public in generating comments. Thank you again, Suzuis Maasi, for the time to share this testimony.
Sizus Masi, Dr. Shelton, and for all your work as well, and for all of those who you've mentioned, their work we have seen and are going to benefit from. Thank you. And for all of those who have done these comment periods for us to help us to create our comments on this very, very short timeline, including Pratehi Guahan. Thank you. Next we have Emily Wood. Oh.
Half a day. I'm Emily Wood. I am the Climate Action Coordinator at the Governor's Office, but also at the UOG Center for Island Sustainability and Sea Grant. So I would like to reiterate everything that Dr. Shelton and former Senator Carlotta have said, and really emphasize that there are so many things we don't yet know about the impacts of deep-sea mining on our islands' health, on the health of our people, on the environment, the oceans, the economy, and the culture. But I would further like to speak on regional relations. As a former U.S. diplomat, the implications of deep-sea mining on our regional relations with our island neighbors is very strong, because many of our neighbors, Palau, FSM, RMI, they have all called for a moratorium on seabed mining. And by the U.S. pursuing deep seabed mining, that will have downstream impacts on our island neighbors, on their fisheries, in addition to the more immediate impacts that we face as the island of Guam. This will put them not only at risk for their environments and health and economies, but it will push them further away from the U.S. and harm our relations as an island. We have been working so hard for the past several years to build up these relations, to learn from them and share our knowledge. So having the U.S. make these decisions without our input, without considering how we are affected on the international stage, this is concerning for all of us. And it is in pursuit of these critical minerals that the administration has deemed critical, but these minerals can also be found elsewhere. So there's no need to rush into this pursuit of critical minerals to protect us from foreign influence, malign influence, when that pursuit of minerals may actually push our neighbors closer to that malign influence, that foreign influence. So it is very contradictory in itself. And I would just like to reiterate that there are all these concerns that that we have, and we also must think about our role in the region and in the Pacific as a whole, beyond just the impacts on our island community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you for your testimony. We would appreciate anything that you can submit to us in writing that would make our transcriptions faster, and it would also allow other senators who are not here today to review those during session. I'm going to ask that the next panel come up now. If we could have Department of Agriculture, Muña, Flores, Taitague, Guam, the no. The Guam EPA, the Commission on Decolonization, Rocky Eustaquio. All right. I'm going to read these names out, and if you intend to make oral testimony, there's 2 seats left. Jeff Drazen, Dr. Drazen, Lauren Swaddell, Leilani Naden, Rico Lizama, Mary Jo Kenga, Peter Onodera. All right, we'll begin with Muña.
I was going to actually go ahead and say, please go ahead and hear from the agencies first.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. I just wanted to make sure you can. I know you have a family funeral. All right. Thank you.
So much.
Department of Agriculture Director, please.
Hafaday, good morning. My name is Chelsea Muña, Director for the Guam Department of Agriculture. I am providing comments from the Department of Agriculture in support of Resolution 132-38, opposing deep sea mining and objecting to BOEM's RFI docket number BOEM 2025-0351. So thank you, Madam Chair and honorable members of the legislature for having us here today. The Guam Department of Agriculture submits these comments in strong support of Resolution number 132-38, which reaffirms the Guam legislature's call for a moratorium on deep sea mining and objects to the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management's request for information regarding commercial leasing for outer continental shelf minerals offshore the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Department of Agriculture's statutory responsibilities include the protection of Guam's fisheries, coral reefs, marine mammals, and interconnected ocean ecosystems that support food security, cultural identity, and long-term economic stability. From this perspective, BOEM's RFI is procedurally deficient, scientifically premature, and inconsistent with the precautionary environmental governance as detailed below. BOEM's RFI process is procedurally deficient and lacks meaningful consultation. BOEM issued RFI docket number 2025-0351 on November 12, 2025, initially providing only a 30-day comment period, later extended by an additional 30 days following a joint request by the governors of Guam and CNMI. Even with this extension, the timeframe remains insufficient for full scientific review, community engagement, and intergovernmental consultation. The RFI was issued without prior public informational meetings in Guam or the CNMI, and without providing access to relevant baseline scientific data. Although characterized as informational, the RFI mirrors federal actions elsewhere that have rapidly progressed from inquiry to area designation, indicating that this RFI represents a substantive step toward leasing rather than a neutral request for input. Internal inconsistency between BOEM's RFI text and maps undermine transparency. BOEM's RFI contains a material inconsistency between the written geographic description of the RFI area and the map provided with the notice. The original Federal Register publication described the RFI area as being located west of the Mariana Trench Marine National Monument. BOEM later issued a technical correction only after they were informed by Guam scientist Mike Gowell, acknowledging that this description was incorrect and that the RFI area is in fact located east of the monument, consistent with the map. This discrepancy impairs stakeholders' abilities to assess proximity to Guam, ROTA, sensitive ecological and cultural resources, fisheries, marine mammal migration corridors, submarine cable routes, and adjacent protected areas, and undermines meaningful public participation. Serious and irreversible environmental impacts without baseline assessment will result. Deep sea mining poses risks of irreversible harm to deep sea ecosystems, biodiversity loss beyond the mining footprint, and impairment of ocean carbon sequestration processes. The RFI area includes biodiverse seamounts known to host deep sea corals and sponges. Deep sea mining has well-documented ecological risks globally, including destruction of seafloor habitat, disruption of nutrient cycles, and the release of toxic heavy metals. While BOEM requests comments on potential impacts, the RFI does not provide baseline scientific data or environmental analyses that would allow stakeholders to assess risks with confidence. Modern deep-sea expeditions in the Marianas routinely discover new species and previously unknown habitats. Yet BOEM did not include or disclose results from recent scientific cruises before issuing the RFI. Deep-sea corals are among the longest-lived organisms on Earth, with documented ages ranging from 2,500 years to over 8,000 years. Deep-sea mining would generate sediment plumes at both the seabed and mid-water column, capable of spreading hundreds of miles. Deep-sea mining would also introduce continuous industrial underwater noise. Guam and CNMI support deep-diving cetaceans, including beak whales and endangered species such as blue whales, fin whales, and sperm whales. These species are already facing cumulative acoustic stress from shipping, military exercises, and mid-frequency active sonar. Naval sonar has been associated with multiple beaked whale strandings in the Mariana region. Guam relies on 11 active submarine cable systems with approximately 10 additional cables planned and serves as a telecommunications hub connecting more than 14 countries. Mining activities could damage or sever these cables, causing significant economic disruption and public safety risks. Deep-sea mining would disproportionately harm the indigenous Chamorro people whose livelihoods, cultural identity, navigation traditions, food systems, and spiritual practices are inseparable from the ocean. International experience demonstrates that deep-sea mining poses significant financial risk to island jurisdictions. In Papua New Guinea, a deep-sea mining project collapsed when the operating company went bankrupt, leaving the national government with approximately $24 million in debt. Under 36 CFR 581.27, no annual rental payment is required during the first 5 years of a lease unless otherwise specified. This allows environmentally risky activities to occur without guaranteed financial benefit to affected regions and creates incentives for rapid exploration without long-term accountability. Deep-sea mining is not proven necessary to meet critical mineral demand. Recycling and recovery of existing materials presents lower risk alternatives. But one concrete step Guam can take now is to ban deep-sea mining in territorial waters. Guam retains authority within its territorial waters and may prohibit deep-sea mining and related activities consistent with actions taken by other U.S. jurisdictions. Such a prohibition would limit the use of Guam's ports and infrastructure to support mining in adjacent federal waters. Hawaii, California, Oregon, and Washington have already enacted such bans. While much of the mineral interest lies in federal waters, Guam's EEZ also include mineral-rich areas east of the trench and hydrothermal vent systems. A territorial ban would make mining in adjacent federal waters more difficult by restricting transport of materials, equipment, and personnel through Guam, reinforcing Guam's commitment to environmental protection. So for these reasons, the Guam Department of Agriculture supports adoption of Resolution 132-38 and urges immediate suspension of BOEM's RFI docket number BOEM 2025-0351 and adoption of a precautionary moratorium on deep-sea mining in the Mariana region. Respectfully submitted. Thank you.
Sidus Masi, Director, thank you so much. Director Guam EPA.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, honorable senators of the 38th Guam Legislature. My name is Michelle Lastimosa. I'm the administrator for Guam EPA. The Guam Environmental Protection Agency submits these comments in strong support of Resolution number 132-38, which reaffirms the Guam Legislature's call for a moratorium on deep-sea mining and objects to the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management request for information regarding commercial leasing for outer continental shelf minerals offshore the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Public Law 11-191, signed in November of 1972, declared to be that the public policy of this territory of Guam that a high-quality environment be maintained at all times to guarantee an enjoyable life for all people at present and in the future, and that environmental degradation of that quality of land, water, and air by any pollutants, including all physical, chemical, and biological agents, should not be allowed. As such, Guam EPA's statutory responsibilities include the protection of Guam's waters, air, and soil. While these authorities allow Guam EPA to regulate protections on and around the island within 3 miles of our coastline, we note that from this perspective, BOEM's RFI is procedurally deficient, scientifically premature, and inconsistent with precautionary environmental governance. I'd like to note that we worked in consultation with the Department of Agriculture, so that I don't want to regurgitate what we worked on together, but really bullet points number 1 through 9 of her testimony is the same. And with that, the Guam EPA supports the adoption of Resolution 132-38 and urges immediate suspension of BOEM's RFI docket number 2025-0351 and adoption of a precautionary moratorium on deep-sea mining in the Marianas region. Thank you.
Sidus Masi, Director, again, thank you to both of your agencies for all the hard work and the joint understanding and study so that we can be better informed as well. Sidus Masi. Yes, Director.
I apologize. I inadvertently left out one point that we wanted to make about the very special manta rays that are also in Guam's waters and have been surveyed as existing within the CNMI as well. So it is theorized that these mantas move between Guam and the CNMI, and they're currently undergoing genetic testing and analysis to determine if this is a unique species of manta. A researcher from Guam, Ms. Julie Hartup, we had a really lengthy discussion yesterday, and one of the hypotheses that she's testing is whether this is a unique species that is a hybrid of ocean manta and reef mantas. So Guam and CNMI may have this unique species population that is really small. Over 265 surveys conducted between 2008-2024 have found or detected 65 unique individuals. That's a small population. And part of her hypothesis is that they move between Guam and the CNMI. And this would be, their path and trajectory would be greatly jeopardized if this mining were allowed to happen. Thank you.
Sidus Masi again, Director, Agriculture, Director, Guam EPA. Thank you. Commission on Decolonization.
Hafiday, Senator Terlaje, and honorable senators of the Guam legislature. Guausi Melvin Wampat Borja, I'm the executive director of the Commission on Decolonization. On behalf of the Commission on Decolonization, I am submitting the following testimony regarding resolution number 132-38. The Commission on Decolonization provides its full support for the resolution and its call for a moratorium on deep-sea mining due to the harms it presents to the people of Guam, most especially to the Chamorro community, and obstacles it may pose to our pursuit of self-determination and decolonization. The proposed federal action for deep-sea mining is a blatant violation of international law and clearly runs counter to the internationally recognized principles of self-determination and decolonization. As an organized, unincorporated territory of the United States, Guam has historically lacked the ability to consent to the development and execution of United States federal activities within the island's air, lands, and seas. Subsequently, we have witnessed the adverse impacts that such activities inflict on our island, including but not limited to the disruption of indigenous food systems, cultural practices, and environmental conservation. Our current inequitable political status allows the United States federal government to exercise sovereignty over the natural resources within and around Guam, to include the island's exclusive economic zone. This allows the United States federal government to exploit the waters surrounding our islands as it sees fit, without the expressed approval from the people of Guam. The proposal to establish a commercial lease for deep-sea minerals on the outer continental shelf, which is offshore of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, is of great concern to the people and governments of both Guam and the CNMI. Ultimately, we remain disempowered due to our shared political status as non-self-governing territories, which allows the United States federal government to, quote, do what we want here and make huge investments without fear of being thrown out, end quote. As an unincorporated territory, the people of Guam are not endowed with the consent or approval authority on United States federal government activities, despite their direct impact on our people. If the proposed RFI results in the awarding of a commercial lease to a corporation to conduct deep-sea mining within the waters near CNMI, mining operations may result in significant social, cultural, economic, and environmental impacts for the entire Marianas Archipelago. Chamorros, the indigenous people of Guam, and the CNMI have strong historical and cultural ties to the oceans that surround their islands and the resources within them. The proposal to lease out portions of the ocean may result in long-lasting environmental harms to the aquatic resources and animal species which inhabit them. In turn, this would have tangible and negative impacts on the daily lives of our people. The potential environmental impacts resulting from deep-sea mining operations present challenges for Guam's government to respond in kind with necessary environmental resiliency measures. The RFI and comment mechanism in place remains an unfair and inequitable process for the people of Guam. It is significant to highlight that although the comment period was given an extension of 30 days beyond the original deadline, this extension is far less than what the governors of both Guam and the CNMI requested for, which was 120 days. Guam lacks the necessary level of sovereignty and self-governance to have ownership over its natural resources. Yet, our island bears the burden of mitigating the negative impacts related to federal projects which seek to exploit the island's natural resources without the express consent of the people. Even if there are possible economic benefits to be yielded from the proposal to exploit minerals from our ocean's resources, our people are not in a position to negotiate with the federal government. We cannot merely assume that the economic benefits outweigh the potential environmental harms, and though it may be true that there will be significant revenue that will benefit Guam, we simply are not empowered to protect what is rightfully ours. So long as we remain politically inferior with our territorial status, we remain vulnerable to exploitation and unable to share equitably in the potential profits of this industry. Even in the event that the people of Guam and the CNMI wish to exploit this natural resource for our own benefit, it should be done on our terms, and we alone should collect on the potential profits. As an unincorporated territory, or even as a commonwealth, the federal government is able to leverage an unfair advantage by asserting their sovereign control over our natural resources and leaving us to fight over the crumbs. Much like the military buildup, the proposed action has been unilaterally decided without our consent and without meaningful negotiation with our people. Again, our political status has allowed the U.S. federal government to make decisions about our future based only on minimal consultation and not meaningful consent. A moratorium on deep-sea mining is critical to ensure the safety, health, and well-being of the human and non-human networks and ecosystems that call Guam home. The unknown consequences of deep-sea mining carry the potential for tremendous harm and devastation for the culture, economy, and livelihood of Guam's people and environment. Genuine partnership and communication between Guam and the United States federal government must take place to ensure that through examination of the impacts of deep-sea mining in Guam is conducted and considered. Siju'us Ma'asi for your consideration of this testimony.
Siju'us Ma'asi, Director. Mr. Eustaquio?
Good morning.
Wait. Yeah. Okay. Please proceed.
Good morning. My name is Roki B. Eustaquio, and I am a resident of Zonia. Today, I rise in opposition to seabed mining at the vicinity of the Mariana Trench. Historically, Guam, the Northern Marianas, and the other islands in Micronesia have encountered the ravages of environmental destruction, such as the impact of World War II. The post-war reconstruction has more or less changed or reshaped the landscape, and only remnants of the war are in museums, historical preservation sites, and textbooks. However, during the 1950s, there were nuclear testing in the Marshall Islands. Over 15 nuclear detonations occurred, contaminating Bikini and Iniwatak atolls. Today, sadly, these islands are still contaminated by radiation. In the state of Kiribati, there is an island called Banaba, formerly Ocean Island. Banaba was the site of surface mining for phosphate, generally used for fertilizer. The mining was so intense that the island was almost completely barren. Today, consequently, nearly all the population had to relocate to another island. Today, Banaba remains a barren island. Although these two examples do not equate or comparable to seabed mining at the Mariana Trench, they all share one common denominator, that is physical environmental disruption and destruction. Mining in any scenario, whether surface mining, subterranean mining, or seafloor mining, is almost always environmentally unfriendly. Geologically, trenches are convergent boundaries of two oceanic tectonic plates. In the case of the Mariana Trench, it involves the convergence of the Philippine Plate and the Pacific Plate. The Mariana Islands are located at the eastern edge of the Philippine Plate. Two important things to note. First, there is marine life at the depths of the trench, and it needs to be protected. Second, biologists and other scientists assert that the miracle of life on this planet may have occurred at the abyss of convergent boundaries. If this claim is true, why destroy this sacred sanctuary that gave rise to the development of our biological human existence? Seabed mining will involve scraping, plucking, grinding, grading, sucking, scouring, and buffing the oceanic floor to extract the desired material and cast away unwanted materials. These extraneous materials are unstable and subject to movement caused by ocean currents and tropical storms. These mining residues will migrate westward to the Marianas. The impact of these residues will affect the eastern coast of the Marianas. On Guam, its notable effects will include Pago Bay, Taitague Beach, Ilik Bay, Ipan Beaches, Iroham Bay, and the other eastern beaches of southern Guam. Pollutants will suffocate living corals, destroy coral reefs, poison fisheries, and foul our beaches. When these mining residues become potentially threat to Taitague Beach, it becomes personal. I was born and raised in Zonia, and I have a few personal histories to share. It was Taitague Beach where I learned how to swim. It was Taitague Beach where I caught my first fish. It was Taitague Beach where I first noticed the existence of the opposite sex wearing a bikini. It was Taitague Beach where I studied for my UOG exams. It was at Taitague Beach where the Zonia boys and I barbecued, drank beer, played guitar, sang songs, mostly out of tune, and smoked the illicit cannabis. Today, Taitague Beach is a gift from previous generations of Zonia residents. It is my obligation to protect and preserve Taitague Beach for this generation and subsequent generations to follow. Therefore, I vehemently oppose seabed mining. Leave the Mariana Trench alone. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee.
Situus Masi, Mr. Stockia from Jotnya. Situus Masi.
Zonia rules.
Right on. Muña Flores, Proteji Guahan.
Cesar Masi, Senator, and to all the senators for this morning's public hearing and for introducing this really critical resolution. We are in danger. We are in danger. And I really want to thank Mr. Eustaquio for his testimony. Mr. Eustaquio joined us at our protest on December 12th in front of the ITC building. And Mr. Eustaquio really emphasizes a really critical point, that you don't have to be an expert on the law or the science to know that this is wrong. And that something the lawyers and scientists can't tell BOEM is why this matters to us as a people. It's those personal stories about learning how to fish, about picking up trash at these beaches throughout our whole lives, about our ranches, about our times with our families, and his promise to future generations. He's absolutely right. It is for all of your grandchildren and great-grandchildren and every generation that follows that we must resist this extremely, permanently destructive act in the Marianas and anywhere else in the world where it happens. And I don't want to be too repetitive. I really, our organization is grateful to see all the branches of government come together and to also see the solidarity that's being cultivated with our neighbors to the north. And it's wonderful to see some people in the Northern Marianas in this room right now. What happens in one part of the Marianas affects the whole of the Marianas, affects the whole of Micronesia and the whole of the Pacific. And we have to recognize that we live in the medium that is the ocean. The ocean is our home. And as we heard in the testimony earlier, the ocean is also our ancestor, probably where some of the first life form emerged. And definitely for us as people of the trench, literally, this is our homeland. Our islands were created by those plates coming into contact and from this trench. So this is our responsibility. And just really want to thank everyone who's testified so far. appreciate all of the mention of toxicity and the destruction to endangered species. It was just discovered recently that humpback whales rather, have a breeding ground in the Northern Marianas, and you can even see these whales from the shores in Saipan. And what we know about cobalt mining specifically is that it's so toxic that the children in the Congo who are mining it with their hands are getting cancers and dying. And it doesn't just affect them, it affects their children and grandchildren as well. This is the kind of toxic contamination that we are very familiar with. And we have to measure any destructive proposal against many generations that have endured horrible environmental contamination and destruction, and all of the generations who have suffered from the diseases and the harms resulting from all of those activities. We have to make this connection to all of that injustice. It's really important to mention that during the Cold War era, it was considered that nuclear waste would be dumped in the trench. And when scientists went down there, they assumed that there was no life down there that would be impacted by the nuclear waste. They found out that there was a lot of life in the trench. And I just wanted to share some pictures of new species that were just discovered in 2016. This is a hydromedusa. This is a relative of the jellyfish. This is a deep sea animal. For a lot of us, the deep sea ecosystem is an abstract. We don't know what it looks like. It's so far away from us. But these are some of the species just found off of the waters of Guam and the Northern Marianas during an expedition. And I really want to thank our board member, Joni Kerr, for finding these. These are part of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's research as part of that expedition. This is a thermal vent. So it's really important to note that they're not just going to pick up these nodules, these potato-sized rocks, as Mr. Estacio described. They're carving into underwater mountains, sea mounts, and near the thermal vents. This is actually called the Chamorro vent. This is actually called the Chamorro vent. This is a thermal vent where hot water that's very close to the core of the planet, the next layer rather in the planet, bubbles up hot water, and these species survive these extreme temperatures. This is a hairy. Do I have a picture? I don't have a picture of a hairy snail that lives on the vents, but there are hairy snails that live on the vents. This is like a fish, a new species of fish that was discovered during that expedition. And even another. Over 90% of the species in the ocean has not even been discovered. But what we do know is that any disturbance to the sea floor has massive impacts. And it's actually really exciting to have Dr. Jeffrey Drazen in the room. Because this man was hired by the metal companies to prove that maybe what they're doing isn't so bad, isn't so destructive, but he found that actually any of that disturbance has a massive impact on the entire food chain of the ocean. That the plumes, the dust plumes that come about with the removal of these nodes and minerals and the scraping away of these seamounts, they have dust that choke zooplankton. Zooplankton are the very basis of the food chain in the ocean. They affect all of these big species that move around the ocean that we talked about, the whales and the dolphins, the dynamic species, but they affect all fish, including the fish that end up on our plates at our dinner table. This affects our food security. This affects our economic security. One of the promises that was made to American Samoa, that they were going to only get 1% of the profits annually from deep sea mining in American Samoa, from $10 billion to $10 million. Well, if you ask the Northern Marianas what the value of their coral reef economy is, whether it's on food or tourism, it's over $65 million a year. $65 million a year compared to a $10 million income. And if you ask the wonderful Brent Tibbetts from the Department of Agriculture, he'll say that Guam's is many, 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 many more millions than that. I ask him and I go, 100 million? More than that. A couple hundred million? More than that. So there is no value. We have to be very cautious in saying that there might be any economic benefit to this. We have to be very cautious that maybe it can promise jobs. We recognize that the CNMI is in an economic crisis. We recognize our own problems here at home, and this has no promise to alleviate any of that hardship. 1% is egregious. It's criminal. But we have to also understand that no amount of money is worth this permanent destruction and desecration of this invaluable and irreplaceable resource. It's very clear in the BOEM language that this mining is to benefit the economy of the United States, but also to be used for defense purposes. Right now, there's an arms race. We can call this what it is, a gold rush, an arms race, a new form of colonization in Oceania. And it's really important to know that while the United States keeps us as an unincorporated territory, refuses to grant us full protections of the Constitution, in the BOEM language, we are now suddenly equal to a state. So when we have something valuable for the empire to exploit, we are suddenly on equal footing. And in no other ways are we equal. In no other ways are we considered fully incorporated in the United States. It is clear in the BOEM language that this is the reality that we're faced with. The area, the proposed area, is only 128 nautical miles away. That is not far at all. And knowing how harmful and how toxic cobalt is, we do need to be concerned that some of those plumes, those toxic plumes, could reach our shores. Mr. Eustaquio is absolutely right there. I don't want to take up much more of your time and be too repetitive with everything that's been said here, but I would like to say that a couple of things. What's happening is that they're trying to sell this as a way of giving us also green energy, clean energy, right? Removing us away from fossil fuel dependency. That is something called greenwashing, and I've reported that to the legislature before. That greenwashing is a deceptive marketing tactic, a manipulation, where companies basically spread misleading information to say that something is a solution. This is a false solution. It does not offer us any sort of economic benefit. There are no, and certainly no protections to our environment. Just down the street, the Gregorio Perez Agana Harbor, right? Marina, the Agana Marina, is named after Gregorio Perez, a Chamorro fisherman who made the Guinness Book of World Records catching a marlin. He caught it in the waters outside of La Texan. Those same waters are going to be taken away as part of the surface danger zone for the live fire training range complex. But we have to remember, people like Mr. Perez, people for whom the marina are named after, that those waters, that fish was caught in our waters, he learned how to fish from his father, who learned from his grandfather, who learned from his great-grandfather in these waters. And that is what we need to tell BOEM. That is what we need to tell BOEM. The metals company is also saying that we're so colonized that we've lost touch with any spiritual and cultural practices about the ocean. We need to tell them that they are absolutely wrong. I know every single person in this room is thinking about a story right now, a protocol, that we ask for permission, that when we don't take too much, we leave some behind, that when we catch fish, we putty to all of our friends, neighbors, and family members, that we don't make loud noise by the ocean, right? All of these stories, we have stories of navigation, and we have stories like Mr. Perez, and these are what we need to convey, to show them that in spite of 300 years of colonization, over 300 years, we are still here, we're still fighting, we're not wiped off the face of the earth, and we will defend our trench, our ocean, our land and waters from this unspeakable criminal act of desecration and destruction. Sizos Masi.
Sizos Masi Pratehi Guahan, and Sizos Masi for your work in getting the comment workshops for all of the public.
Sizos Masi, Senator, I'd just like to add, we do have a toolkit. It's a great resource. It has a ton of research, news articles. It has the video of our first comment workshop. So far, we've had 2 comment workshops with Earth Justice. We actually have an attorney on hold right now with Earth Justice, David Henkin, who's here to also provide testimony. And we have a friend from the diaspora, at least Bias. They've both been on hold. And so I would like to ask if we could go to them next, immediately following me, just for their testimony. They would like to know if they need to stay on to ask any questions because of the time difference. Elise is in Seattle and David is in Hawaii.
We made pre-arrangements for that.
Okay,
They had
wonderful.
asked. So if audio's ready, we'll go to the Zoom for Earth Justice. Cecil Smasi. Mr. David, Attorney Henkin, you're recognized.
Hafa I hope that you can hear me okay, and I appreciate this opportunity to testify on this very, very important matter. My name is David Henkin. I'm an attorney in the Mid-Pacific office of Earth Justice, which is in Honolulu. We do a lot of work with the people in Guam as well as the Northern Marianas, and we're also working very hard on the very many comment periods that are flying at us for deep sea mining throughout the Pacific. So not only off of the Mariana Islands, but also off of American Samoa and near to Hawaii in the Clipperton zone between us and the West Coast. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. We are in strong support of the resolution and the call to continue the moratorium on deep sea mining in the waters around Guam and off the rest of the Mariana Islands. The resolution does a wonderful job of cataloging the many reasons why a moratorium is justified, given the existential threats that deep sea mining poses to the people of Guam and the rest of the Mariana Islands, who depend on a healthy ocean for subsistence, economic well-being, and perpetuation of the culture. There's just a couple of, you've heard a lot today. The testimony really covers the ground. I want to emphasize a couple of points. The proven technology for deep sea mining, which is basically strip mining the ocean, it would be environmentally devastating. There's no question about that. There's been study on that. It would be long-lasting. It would be intergenerational. You're going to be hearing over in the coming days and years of promises that there are new technologies that can gently pluck nodules from the sea floor without causing any harm. Those promises are just that. They're promises. They're empty promises because the technologies have not been developed. They're not proven. And so, a moratorium is essential in order to make sure that we get, if there is going to be some future way to harvest from the sea without devastating the ecosystems on which as island people we rely, then fine. But until it's proven, the sort of the speculators and the promoters of deep seabed mining are going to be reaping all the profits, while the people of Guam would be paying all the price. The other thing I want to emphasize with respect to the types of promises that are going to be made are promises of significant revenues. So there's going to be an appeal to concern for the economic well-being of the people of Guam and the Northern Marianas, that all this money is going to come in. Well, as has been discussed, it's a small fraction of any profits that would be going outside of the Marianas to others who are coming in and taking your resources. But even then, it's complete speculation. Because as testimony you heard from the director of the Department of Agriculture, there are other sources of these minerals, and probably more importantly, technology is evolving to get away from the need for these minerals. And so you see prices of these minerals already falling. So by the time that they've come in and they've destroyed the seabed and they've stirred up the sediment plumes that have devastated the ecosystem, spread toxins into the food web and into the fish that people take to put food on their family's table. By the time all that is done, whether there's any profit to get any percentage of is completely speculative. So again, all of the information that's available now speaks to the need to really be very cautious here. And the moratorium resolution properly recognizes the need to take a very precautionary approach, because that's the only responsible thing to do for the people of the Marianas, including the people of Guam. And so we strongly support the resolution. We appreciate this opportunity to testify, and we're happy to answer any questions that you all may have. Thank you.
Sitsusmasi, Attorney Henkin, and thank you to Earth Justice for all your work for Guam and our region. Ms. Baez, thank you for making arrangements in advance as well. You're recognized.
Buenas Tanhafade, Guam Legislature, Sitsusmasi for hosting this hearing and for giving the community an opportunity to testify against deep sea mining. Ina Anhusi Elise Baez, Dumangkaludzu, Giza Ziguguahan, Lo Sumasagapagu, Giza Auburn, Washington. My name is Elise Baez, and I grew up in Jigo, Guam, but I currently live in Auburn, Washington. And even though I reside in the diaspora, Guam and the Marianas will always be my home. I was held by the waters of those oceans. And it doesn't look like it right now because I live in Washington, but the sun of the islands has kissed my skin. I have been nourished by the coconut and the bilimbinas from my grandpa's ranch. And the land and the sea has been the foundation of our Chamorro cultural heritage. The ocean is a connection for us to our ancestors. And our ancestors, as we know, were highly skilled, incredible seafaring navigators and highly skilled fishermen. And today, the same ocean continues to sustain us, providing a myriad of benefits, including food, rest, just different ways of healing with the ocean, recreation, ways for us to come together as family to celebrate life and the blessings that we have. And disturbing the seabed will bring, as everybody has mentioned here today, irreparable harm to the environment, and will also have lasting impacts on future generations to come. It's funny because I actually work in data analytics, and I know that something that's been mentioned over a few times is that we don't have the data, the science to, really tell us the impacts of deep sea mining on our people. And I don't want to invalidate that at all. But quite frankly, using data, numbers, and dollar signs is a Western way of analyzing something and of determining the value of something. And since time immemorial, our people have moved with nature, have used our intuition, have used our instinct to guide us. And I know in my body, whose epigenetics are familiar with the islands, whose epigenetics are familiar with the sea, the answer is no. There isn't anything else that needs to be presented to me for me to feel in my body and in my heart and in my spirit that this will not in any way, shape, or form benefit our people. And no benefit will outweigh the risk and the harm that will arise from deep sea mining. And I also want to thank those of you who showed up today to provide your testimony, because it's really clear that in this present moment, we are the writers of this story. We are the ones who are the stewards of our islands, of our people, and we have to stand up and use our voices to speak up. And today, even if large colonial powers rewrite the story, rip out the pages, erase us from the books, let the record show that we are standing here with our dignity, with our people's best interests in mind and in our hearts, and that tomorrow resilience will continue forward, regardless of what happens or occurs. But because of this, I, a daughter of Guahan, a Chamorro woman, I strongly oppose deep sea mining in the Marianas, in the ocean, around the Marianas, in the ocean, in the Pacific Island region, and beyond.
Hakumas Sitsusmasi. Thank you so much. Mary Jo Kingat. I'd like to recognize as well with us Senator Sabina Flores Perez. Thank you, Senator. She's the first co-author on this resolution and the first author of the resolution in 2021 opposing and putting a moratorium on seabed mining for Guam. Senator Perez.
I am Mary Jo Justine Taitsno Kenga, and I am a Chamarita Pescadora. I practice traditional fishing today. I stood up for American Samoa when the exact same permitting was happening, and it wedged a wall between Western Samoa and American Samoa. And here I am today because now it's happening to us. 35.5 million acres of seafloor for commercial mining for the Sinamai is a big deal. It throws a wedge between the Chamorros of the Sinamai and Guam. Is it because we're territories that we're being manipulated? This wasn't the deal that we made for our culture. We would have never ever agreed to this. We're smarter than that, and it's just dumb. I believe that fishing is an inherent right for all indigenous people of the Marianas. It is the last currency that Chamorros have to feed their families. I believe it's my inherent right to oppose all destructive practices that threaten my way of life, and more importantly, my God-given right to practice my cultural heritage. It is my right to sustain my life by harvesting food from my ocean, as it is just as natural for me to speak my native language. Deep sea mining in the Marianas will cause detrimental damage to my culture. We need to remember that none of the proceeds will go to the Marianas or any of the people in the Western Pacific. The mining is not to produce medicine or food, and I want to invite all the people of the world to join us in this fight against this initiative. We are responsible for this water. We are the guardians of our sea. Because we are the indigenous people of these islands, we have survived because of our ocean. Let's be magnificent as the waters that surround and protect us, and let's remember to protect what we have. Let's teach those who are ignorant to our way of life and show them that there's no greater gain than providing safe resources for people to live in. This is our culture, this is our way. Call all your friends, your relatives who believe in our way of life and show up. Speak out before it's too late. Pressure these petroleum companies and supply companies not to support the ships who may win these permits, should BOEM continue to continue this awful initiative. Contact all the island nations around us to refuse entry of these vessels before they get into our area, killing our seabed, and we should do the exact same thing for them. Tell the fishermen today what's happening to us so they can stop this now and they can tell other people. Thank you for listening, and with a little luck and the grace of God, we will win. Continue to support each other in any and all issues that affect our people. We didn't go through an occupation and natural disaster only to invite destruction for such a small gain. Let's fight together and stop this now, and don't be afraid. If you're unable and you're unwilling to help, step aside so we can just continue this important task of saving our culture. This feeling of saying this today is like I'm saying a eulogy for our Chamorro people. And if we don't stop this, it will happen. Sizuz Maasi, thank you for your time, and come out into the water.
Sizuz Maasi, Ms. Kenga. Senor Onodera.
Buenas hermanas y todos. Ti preparados que me gaje pagan alguém para ver fanar testemunho por esse lo era que o como que se cheia os problemas de mangai guini a tuca e se nenteco na tirebi de fama kilwa da be fatatsen lo que guini da be o testigo tar como tsamoro magai no pescadores de hadahu por guisa na gaio pago na organ lao domanculuzo gidini que eu sou gajo guisa tomamos a família com família baliches dan cetton já posetumo é uma hinana e manhano ham da man pesca ge tasen ipau dan toro tasen tomhum za utungo por eso se na kinalanten guna tempo za magay mina sapi eso para I tautagis lo para lina la mami tat como familia za tadung eso ki Guam za ni unu entre za hita na tautau Guam pacino no ti Marianas ti sina ta sanga na ti tamiresi kinisetsa gininitasi sa todo hair achuka ti pescador pa no mahana zo pomesca carria lo tisuzo guihan dan gamson dan asuli dan todo no sa todo ado utagi no sa za paraguao magay tadung medgut senglung este na parte gi cultura itase gi originata za magay para na buwado na talo este na kinalangtin sa humahalum do na achuka hafat ta sangan za manggongong het Mata Estados Unidos sa guiza lamon, guiza sumsedi mentas se Melvin sa magahir eso, sen magahir eso na aksyon tori tempo hita ni tatautano, hita ni manyasaga gwini gi islata, hita mandanyuzan tori tempo, man machatsan dahir, man machatsat gihir, man mafa gagagahir, Mano ne matu China para este na classes este na piniponi e para ta choma este na uma sucede gimagahir hafa benefício para hita alus último magai ta gi Taitague ni este na por este na articuli para guinaduk e fondontasi hafa benefício para hita ko para tamiresi salapie Pajangin manmunhadan siha malofan nos cuantos años de ma guardo que fondontasi pues al manmunhadan manmapos majuti tore cucinada en barasos basula zahita mandada tat como tatatano zan na pinitiste na bubu zan tisina na pabe asuna tatiza behu sa gisa siya lamoni tatasan lago Estados Unidos za matusina na ni basta hirabina para se sedisi tori tempo na bubulekta za Paraguay ni tatotano kumahulo zo gwini za banti mataya zo papa loki gwini za imanatati siya sa guahaf magono todo se fa nagwin estudiante ge escuela sistema de escuelas en Universidad Guam siya siempre para uma fana na cocinada a los últimos. Ya ellos na Decolonization be tugi huzung sininteco be entrega halum agupa asalengmo agupa no las 12 fanan no último fecha para tener mi testimonio. Pues en Decolonization más lo que mangaigi se aguini una hay ánimo, en espíritu, en bendición. Sa mampareway todo mandanyay gwini na momento sa tatsonik sa Muña na tasede sa hita a los últimos pumadesi na dismorona ni itasi. Si Dios mase.
Si Dios mase, Señor Onader. All right, we're going to ask the next panel to come up. If I call your name and you'd like to make oral testimony, please come forward. Veronica Cruz, Callan Perez, Anthony, looks like Young, Saizu Chen, Tomas, is it Tudela? Isa Ariola, Brent Tibbet. Sybil Chrysostomo, Harmony Pelaganes, Allison Rudder, Carolyn, and Clementine Schnabel. If there's any of you who'd like to testify, or anyone who I haven't called who wants to testify, please come forward. After this, I'm gonna open the panel to my colleagues for questions or comments. So those who testified earlier, if they could come in soon, and we will be able to do that.
I'm
All
so
right.
sorry, Senator.
Yes.
Is it okay if I make one more point I
Yes,
forgot to make in my
Muña
testimony?
Flores, yes.
Cesar Masi. I'm so sorry. It was brought to my attention by the director that I really should emphasize that the 1% that was promised to American Samoa, that is not through the law. That is through the metals company. And they also said to American Samoa, you know we don't have to give that to you. So it's all in abstract. So I just wanted to clarify that American Samoa is not entitled to 1%, and neither are we. There's nothing in the law that guarantees any percentage. And then also just to say one point that I really forgot to mention in regards to the zooplankton is that the zooplankton, much like plants, they absorb carbon and produce oxygen. And the ocean is a huge producer of oxygen for the planet. And this is an important security issue for us, as we as Pacific Islanders are also fighting against climate change and climate crises, that we really need to keep that in mind, that carbon sequestration, that the phenomenon of the zooplankton being able to store that carbon in the ocean protects us as ocean people, but it also provides our planet with a large % of the oxygen that we breathe. Thank you so much. Sizos Masi, everybody.
Again, Sizos Masi Muña. Also, Vanessa Story, Catherine McCullum, and Fran Castro. And anyone else who would like to testify, this will be our final panel this morning. All right, so we'll begin on the right. If you could introduce yourself, please state your names for the record when you begin. Thank you.
Yes, hello, my name is Allison Rudder. I'm here in a personal capacity, but I am a resident of Guam, and my mother brought me here in 1990. She was born here in 1956. And therefore subject to some of the radiation effects of these territories. And so bringing me here as a child and getting to spend my life on Guam and call it home has been a greatest privilege. Professionally, I've worked as a mechanical engineer, both stateside and also on Guam. Most recently for the National Renewable Energy Lab, Department of Energy's National Renewable Energy Lab, now called the National Lab of the Rockies. I also have worked as the Regional Energy Program Director for Joint Region Marianas. I've worked as a sustainability consultant for the built environment here on Guam, and also as a faculty engineer for the Center for Island Sustainability. So I've done a lot of things around, but Guam is my home, and I'm privileged to get to practice the type of work that I do. And so as a mechanical engineer, I mainly work on efficiency and renewables, and really just using having the efficient and restorative use of resources to support our built environment. Now, I have heard much testimony today on issues that I am not a subject matter expert in, but I'm so lucky to know many marine biologists, many lawyers, such as Attorney Uggan, many teachers and educators. And when I was in 4th grade, my teacher, Mrs. Wolf, played a John Denver song, and it's called Whose Garden Was This? This is 4th grade to Meeting Elementary, shout out, go Whales. So we had, the words were, whose garden was this? It must have been lovely. Did it have flowers? I've seen pictures of flowers, and I'd love to have smelt one. And it goes on, and it talks about basically the loss of our natural environment due to the overuse of industrial efforts. So, for instance, I think this fast forward more decades than I care to admit, but now it seems the time to really repeat that lesson that I learned at Tamuning Elementary, to say it is we have to think long and hard about the effects of the type of efforts we take, even in the name of sustainability or moving towards a green economy. This is a summary of my written testimony, so I won't take too much more of your time, and I will be submitting. But I want to give you a couple more examples of my the confluence of my personal and professional lives. One of the best things I tell people to do for their homes to keep it cool is to coat their roofs in silicone. It's actually a really good thing you can do to limit your heat, the heat coming in like through the concrete into your home. So often you spend like, I mean, they're like $500. If anybody's done it, they're very expensive buckets of silicone, right? And you coat your roof, and it should lower your energy bill, honestly. And that's something I've said for many years, and I still support it. But I live near the beach, and I walk my dog every morning on the beach, and I can't help it. I'm just constantly picking up what I see because it's in front of me, and I play games with myself about, today I'll pick up green glass, or I'll pick up forks or something like that. And the most recent game is picking up bits of silicone from roof coating at the confluence of where Assin Valley opens up into the bay, and right in front of Assin Cut. And I'm picking up silicone. I'm picking up the very thing I tell people to do professionally to keep their homes conditioned. And that's, I'm not going to stop saying it, but it's so important for us to realize the full the full circular effect of the recommendations we make. And it's making me a better professional, and it's making me a better person to realize how much the work that we do, even at the 30,000 foot level, when I advocate for efficiency and sustainability, that there are real downstream effects to making those recommendations. So it behooves all of us to really make sure we can stand behind our recommendations and the downstream order effects that they result in. And I'm trying to do that better professionally. So while I can't speak to the deep sea mining effects ecologically and environmentally, as well as my fellow panelists and the testimony you've heard today, I can say that as a professional in efficiency, reliability, resiliency, and sustainability, that yes, I will echo former panelists, we don't know that these minerals will be used in a way that will support this green economy that they're relying on. And I do counsel everybody, especially BOEM, to really take a look at every downstream order of effect that this will make on a place like ours. With the recent full moon, there was some really great fishing near my spot. And I was privileged to witness a father taking his son for the first time and catching some really great, honestly, they kissed him and threw him back because some of them were too small, but it was really wonderful to see traditional fishing practices happening in my little bubble, and if I want to see that continue to happen. So please, please listen to the testimony here today, and thank you for your support and for putting together this resolution, especially Senator Perez for doing it way back when, and having all of you join her in this resolution. So thank you so much for today, and I will be submitting written testimony in support of these comments.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rudder. Please proceed.
Hafaday and good morning, everyone. My name is Fran Castro, and I offer this testimony in my own personal capacity. Thank you for introducing Resolution 132-38 and all the work you're doing to elevate this issue. As a resident of Guam and a native of the Northern Mariana Islands and an environmental professional for over 25 years, I submit this testimony in strong opposition to any proposal that would allow deep sea mining within or near the Marianas Trench. The trench and its surrounding ecosystems are among the most unique, fragile, and the least understood environments on Earth. Disturbing these habitats for mineral extraction poses irreversible risks to the natural resources that sustain our communities and our cultural identity and our ocean-dependent way of life. Scientific research shows that deep-sea mining can cause long-term damage to benthic ecosystems, including destruction of seafloor habitats, loss of biodiversity, disruption of nutrient cycles, and sediment plumes that travel far beyond the extraction sites. These impacts are not temporary. In many cases, the deep sea's slow biological recovery rates mean damage may persist for centuries, well beyond the lifetime of any commercial operation. For the Marianas region, which hosts one of the deepest and most biologically distinct environments on the planet, this risk is especially unacceptable. Our islands and the people who live there depend on healthy ocean systems for food security, coastal resilience, climate regulation, and cultural practices passed down across generations. Opening the door to industrial extraction in such a sensitive and global significant area disregards the precautionary principle and compromises the ecological legacy we are obligated to protect. It also undermines ongoing regional efforts to strengthen sustainable fisheries, protect coral reefs that are already challenged by rising sea temperatures, ocean acidification, and high-intensity storms. There is currently no proven technology or regulatory framework that can guarantee the avoidance of serious environmental harm from deep-sea mining. Independent scientific bodies and many Pacific Island nations have called for moratoria until far more is understood. I urge BOEM to prioritize the long-term health of our ocean and the rights of indigenous and local communities over short-term economic interests. For these reasons, I strongly oppose deep-sea mining in the Mariana Trench and around Guam and ask that any and all planned exploratory activities and commercial development be halted. Our responsibility as indigenous people is to safeguard the natural heritage of the Marianas for future generations, not to sacrifice it to an industry whose risks are profound and whose benefits remain uncertain. Jesus Masi for the opportunity to comment.
Jesus Masi, Ms. Castro. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thanks, girl. Hafide, good morning, and thank you, senators, for being here and for introducing this resolution. My name is Vanessa Duenas, and I am writing to express my vehement opposition to the Bureau of Ocean Management leasing the sale for minerals on the outer continental shelf offshore the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, totaling 35 million acres of ocean in our island chain. With that, I would like to express my full support of resolution number 132-38 relative to reaffirming the Guam legislature's call for a moratorium on deep-sea mining. I am an indigenous Chamorro woman. Both of my parents are Chamorro who met in the States. My father was born and raised on Guam, and my mother was born in a naval hospital in California. I was also born in the States. Ever since I was a little girl, my father would tell us stories of our ancient ancestors that roamed the Halamtano. He would tell us that my tata would take the boys into the jungles and Paget to hunt. He would tell them how to see in the jungle and how to respect the land and the spirits that live there. My father said the Tautomona were strong and powerful people, and that's how they made the lati. Later on, I would read of our history through books in my father's library and the havoc that the Spaniards reaped upon these islands. At a young age, I was filled with pride to be Chamorro, and at a young age, I was radicalized simply by reading our history. I was filled with rage that would make me cry at the dinner table. Dad, how could the Spanish do that to us? I hate them. And he would tell me that I cannot hate them because whether I liked it or not, I have Spanish blood in me. This is where I learned that the state of our islands and our people does not lie in the past, but in the future. What destruction would deep-sea mining bring to our futures as an ocean people? We understand the islands and encompassing ocean to be one of our most ancient ancestors, as well as our rightful inheritance. This inheritance, passed down throughout generations, fueled our ways of life which sustained us for thousands of years before even the Spanish came. And under our current colonizer, the United States of America, many of our indigenous families' lands were stripped away from them under coercion and for 1/8 of a penny per square meter. Countless other families saw opportunities to sell their lands for money. We traded bird songs, the smell of smoke, and fishing parties that sustained our indigenous ways of life for polluted waters restricted from fishing, towering buildings that obstruct the sky, many of them run down, dilapidated, and a hazard to our community. What will we trade if they are allowed to mine our oceans? What are they going to give us in return this time? A full penny, perhaps, if anything at all. Either way, it's not worth the future of our islands, our people, and our precious ocean. We cannot afford to find out what will happen. With the immense beauty that comes along with our lands and oceans, they also come with inherent responsibilities. As Tautautano, it is our duty to be their caretakers, stewards, and when the time comes, their warriors and protectors. And this is one of those times. We are born with the blood of fierce warriors and intellects that have fought our colonizers throughout the generations, over 300 years. We who crafted wings to fly the ocean, who feel ease by her waters, and that pray for her mercy. The ocean courses our veins, and our ancestors are not for sale. Our island and our people are currently standing up against the military for the human right to clean drinking water. As if raping the land wasn't enough, they must devour the ocean too. While our basic human rights are being denied on our ancestral lands, the U.S. would like to further endanger our health and well-being by mining our oceans. What will happen once they extract? What will the consequences be? How is this going to affect the health of our ocean? While the rich and powerful sit happy, fat and happy, we will suffer the consequences. Is it the goal of the United States to make our islands uninhabitable? How much more will we allow them to take from us that they haven't taken already? Our lands for their buildup, our bodies for their war. Now it's our ocean for their benefit. Perhaps they would like to take our souls next, since the United States is devoid of its own. They stole the land and then poisoned it. They took Vena and they want our aquifer so that they can poison that too. They chose to paralyze us into compliance instead of doing their duty to set us free. If they continue deep-sea mining, then let it be proof that our lives are meaningless to them. If deep-sea mining continues and Oceania suffers from severe natural disasters brought on by this destruction of the environment, our islands would be uninhabitable. As an ocean people, how would we ever be able to come back home? Guam is subject to the National Environmental Policy Act, which would require federal agencies to consider environmental factors when planning projects that may significantly affect the environment. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen if deep-sea mining continues. And as stewards of the land and ocean people, our people will rise to protect it. I oppose deep-sea mining in the Marianas. I oppose deep-sea mining in Oceania. I stand for the protection of our ancestor and for everyone who calls her home. And that concludes my oral testimony.
Ms. Dueñas, please proceed.
Buenas and half a day, Inanusi Veronica Cruz, Sumasagatsu Kitsa Chalampago. To be honest, I was not prepared to speak today, but when I heard my name, I said, why not? So I will speak from the heart, from the spirit, and with much humility. I'm a Chamorro artist and an aspiring Chamorro educator. And I spend plenty of time in our water, and I'm sure, hopefully, all of you have as well. We grew up very close to the ocean here. And I can tell you that our ocean, parts of our ocean are hurting. I see it when I snorkel. Coral bleaching is very present. Our waters in Jigo were also very contaminated. And I question, when will we take action and stop being complacent in being okay with what's going on our island? I'm sorry, I'm not a scientist, but I have experience here. I grew up here. I grew up very, very close to the ocean. And I think of my nieces and nephews who will hopefully have a clean ocean as well. I think of our Famagun as an aspiring teacher. I think of education, how important education is. And I urge young people to really stop being so distracted and educate themselves on what's going on, because we are the future leaders. And Tizis Mahasi.
Ms. Cruz, very much appreciate all of your testimony today. We have just an additional comment from Elise Bias on Zoom, very quick. Then we'll open up to the panel. Ms. Bias?
Again, I just wanted to mention also that the Earth Justice comment workshops that were hosted, there were attendees from the diaspora who came in both of those workshops, there were questions about whether or not people in the diaspora could submit a comment on behalf of our islands. And so I think it's incredibly important for us to really have the time to educate, to do outreach, to let people know what this process is like, because we don't know. This Western way of trying to move forward in legislation and law it's not of us, you know? And so I think it's just really important that all of us do what we can to share, that anyone can comment on this if they feel called to oppose it. So that's my final comment. Sizusmasi.
Again, Sizusmasi to all those who have been present here today and testified today. And welcome and thank you to Dr. Drazen, who's also present here today. He is the deep sea ecologist at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, who is going to be part of a presentation tonight, a community workshop for comments on deep sea mining. This is going to be held at the Guam Museum from 4 to 8 p.m. Attorney Julian Uggan will be there, Dr. Therese Mook from Blue Ocean Law, Dr. Jeffrey Drazen from UH Manoa, and Dr. Sean McDuff, the superintendent of Mariana Trench Marine National Monument. If you need help making your comments, this comment workshop is for you. Again, Sizusmasi to all. And without further ado, I'm going to open this panel up to those, my colleagues, the senators, in the order that they came, as far as I know, and then we're going to wrap it up with the Vice Speaker and Speaker and the co-author of the resolution, Senator Perez. So, Senator Taitague? Yes. Go, please proceed.
Thank you, Senator Terlaje, for the opportunity to at least say a few things. I was hoping that Attorney Uggan was still here. But knowing that he might have left early, I did jump out and talk to him about a couple of things that I was concerned about. I really believe that, the route we're taking on the United Nations side is something that could be viable, but I think we need to also look at incorporating FSM as well as Palau and other neighboring islands to join in to this endeavor. They are part of the United Nations. And all the comments that were made by Attorney Julian is something that we need to continue to look at and move forward with. I do know in my reading of the United Nations scenario is that the deep sea mining is an unregulated and untested industry with so much that no commercial licenses have been granted at this point. So deep sea beds and other untapped resources fall under the jurisdictions of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, and which was created by International Seabed Authority. However, despite the ISA being part of the United Nations, not every country that is a member of the United Nations is a signatory of the ISA UNCLOS, which is UNCLOS is the acronym. The United States, along with the following nation member states, have not signed on, and there are several, but one of them is the United States. Additionally, the rules and regulations for seabed mining have not been created and implemented, which begs the question, if the rules and regulations on deep sea mining have not been created or promulgated, what would happen if a country or corporation were to begin deep sea mining operations without commercial lease from ISA? So we're in a big situation right here if we're using the United Nations as support, in our endeavor. that these rules and regulations need to be put in place in order to enforce these laws. At this point, having FSM, Palau, and YAP, where they would be, affected as well in this area, that we need to bring them on board too. And I hope, Madam Chair, that that's something that we can reach out to before our resolution, maybe even incorporate that, to be sending out this resolution to the other neighboring islands who are part of the United Nations, who are signatories to the United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea, or the International Seabed Authority, as signatories. This is going to be very helpful as we move forward to fight for our land, our sea, because it affects everything. So I greatly, and my last thing, I just greatly appreciate everyone who's come out here and done the research and provided, just a heartfelt, testimony, as well as one that has been researched. I think this is something that we all need to stay on top of, and I encourage everyone that was here today to also advocate to everyone else that you meet from here on out to be a part of this fight against having deep sea mining in our region. Sijus Masi.
Sijus Masi. Senator Taitague, Senator Sean Gumentalto.
Thank you, Madam. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the time this morning, and thanks to everyone that did come out to testify on this resolution. It is absolutely, how can I say, I was very pleased to put some faces with names of the nearly 738 folks who commented on the regulations.gov website that were actually in attendance today. And if you haven't, Madam Chair, and those who are on the panel, I would strongly urge you to read some of the comments. Of all the comments that I read, there was one that jumped out at me, and a friend of Guam and a former colleague when I was working in the executive branch, Mike Gawal, when Mike's had put in his testimony some of the resources that he had brought and recommended as part of this effort to BOEM. I got to say that if they're not reading it, I would suggest all of you read it, because it really does give such deep meaning to the research that has been done, only a sliver of the research done in the years that the Marianas Trench has been studied. And it was such a just good read, but also very insightful for me as a policymaker. Madam Chair, I'm also concerned that while 9 days after the release of the Federal Register, that the delegates of the Northern Marianas and Guam were able to huddle up, make a recommendation to the federal government, specifically to the Department of Interior. It was kind of that action that really should have spurred us a little bit quicker. I know that you provided this resolution. I was hoping that the office of the governor was going to remain. To see them and to understand that saying, hey, we need to move faster. Well, the interagency group on insular areas met twice in 2025, in February and in September. Did the interagency group on insular areas discuss this particular issue, not just for Guam, but for American Samoa? Considering that BOEM has, I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, this is going to be really new territory for them in terms of providing leases on the outer continental shelf. And so, did it come up in those meetings? I know that it took just around 41 days for them to engage our branch. And I'm not saying that they should have acted faster, but they probably should have. And then we would not be having doing this resolution now. We would probably did it much sooner. And I guess I'm not going to say better late than never, but I would say that this is a complementary effort and I wasn't here in the previous legislature that set a policy, or at least the tone of the Guam legislature relative to this issue. and I do stand in support of both that one and this particular effort. But I do have a couple of questions, Madam Chair, and I don't know if anyone in this room can answer, but I'm hoping that myself, in the meantime, will be able to get answers to it. With respect, and it was mentioned by Director of Agriculture, Chelsea Muña, with respect to subsea cables that run through Guam and other parts of the Marianas and Micronesia, what information is available from local telcos, University of Guam's WERI, and other government and non-government entities regarding the steps that can be taken consistent with the President's seabed mineral development policy to support investment in deep sea mapping, particularly measures that will help avoid physical damage and disruption to this critical global infrastructure. Madam Chair, as you know, that there has been studies done in the region in the recent years. In fact, I think one in the last year started and stopped, according to what I had read in my particular reading of some of the information on it. But also recognizing that it's been reported by local media that China's mapping activities are part of broader ambitions to dominate deep sea assets and critical minerals, linking floor surveys to wider resource and security goals. Is it necessary, I ask my colleagues, to amend any part of this proposed resolution to ensure that ultimately this group of policymakers remains acutely aware that responsible activities in and around our exclusive economic zone in Guam's, not the CNMI's, but Guam's, should be seriously considered? Because if we don't move ourselves forward, it is my opinion, Madam Chair, that potential adversaries to our nation, to the United States of America, will, and they'll do so without our consent, or worse, our respective knowledge. So, Madam Chair, with that said, again, I thank you for holding this, and I do stand in support of the resolution.
Sizos Masi, Senator Goodman Tautau. Senator Chris Barnett.
Sidus Masi, Madam Chair, and I want to thank everybody who came out to provide testimony this morning. It's actually very encouraging to see this unified front. And, you know, I submitted my official comments yesterday, but I wish I'd waited, because there's a lot of information that we heard this morning that I think is going to be very relevant for anybody who's submitting comments before the January 12th deadline. And, you know, one thing I found very interesting was that this effort seems to be a continuation of the about face and 180-degree turns that we're seeing all too often under the Trump administration. But I thought it was a little ironic that this Marianas Trench National Marine Monument was actually created by President Bush, and the management plan for the Mariana Trench National Marine Monument was just approved in May of 2024, barely a year ago. And I'll go ahead and read from some of this plan, which reads in part: the monument is located on the western edge of the Pacific Ocean and east of the Philippines, in the vicinity of the Mariana Archipelago of islands, the historic and ancestral homelands and home waters of the Chamorro and Carolinian people. The plan further reads that the trench is host to unusual species that make a living in seemingly extreme settings. The world's first discovery of hydrothermal vent fish was made in a boiling undersea lake of liquid sulfur on one of the monument's seamounts. And then the plan further talks about actions occurring beyond the monument boundaries, such as commercial fishing and deep sea mining, all proposed military training within the Navy's Mariana Islands Training and Testing Program, and right-of-way permits and associated environmental assessments to install submarine fiber optic telecom cables are beyond the scope of this plan. These activities may require separate NEPA processes. So my constituents and I share the belief that this passage and the monument's actual management plan align with our sentiment that deep sea mining really just flies in the face of the intent of the creation of the Mariana Trench National Marine Monument. And I just want to say, Madam Chair, again, that I'm very encouraged by the overwhelming support for the resolution. And I'm very encouraged by the unified front that not only the governments of Guam, and the CNMI are engaging in, but I'm hopeful that we could also get, as it was said on the record previously, the involvement of maybe the governments of the Federated States of Micronesia. And, you know, I just have to say for the record, I was a little bit bothered with the discussion about any potential revenue or any potential benefit to the people of Guam, because I believe that's a conversation that's to be had way down the road. I think our obligation or responsibility to our people is to stop the forward movement of any and all proposals to conduct deep sea bed mining in our waters and in our region, Madam Chair. So I thank you for the opportunity, and I just want to further note that there was some testimony provided kind of laying out how what's happening now is really indicative of our political status. And I think if we had a similar unified front relative to political status and more self-determination, that we could be successful in changing the conditions that allow for these types of actions to be conducted by bureaucrats who are thousands of miles away, who really prefer to work on behalf of carpetbagger or corporations with really little to no respect or knowledge of how much we value our environment. I just took my daughter fishing for the first time at EPAN. Ms. Ritter, I don't know if you're familiar with that area, but yeah, we stop and pick up the trash too. But I think that, you know, these oceans that surround us, they're not borders or barriers, they actually connect our people and our islands. And so again, on that note, I'm very grateful for the unified front that we're presenting, and also for the leadership really of Senator Terlaje and Senator Perez, you know, for kind of planting this flag in the ground, and you see everybody follows the leader. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Senator Barnett. Senator Agustin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I'd like to thank first the participants on this hearing, thank them for their participation. But you know what really strikes me more is the testimony of EPA and Department of Agriculture. I like their statement is that what maybe we should consider, other than just the resolution on the moratorium, is but the banning of deep sea mining. And that's something I would like to look at, and we can see that. I brought that up to your attention, Madam Chair, that we may seriously or should consider that, because if we can slow them down, other than just the resolution, and they can't bring in their equipment, can't travel through Guam, that will make a better, more serious impact than just the simple resolution, hoping the United States government would listen to us. Because they have a habit of not entertaining us and just doing whatever they want. So with that, Madam Chair, I do fully support the moratorium, but I would like to seriously take a look at the legislation to consider banning all deep sea mining on our territorial waters. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator San Agustin. Senator Calvo.
Sidus Masi, Madam Chair, and thank you for bringing up this resolution, this very important moratorium, call for moratorium. And I'd like to thank each and everyone who offered their profound testimonies and everyone else who came here today to support this initiative. You know, what we are discussing here today is not hypothetical. Across the Pacific, scientists are raising concerns, serious and deep concerns about deep sea mining's irreversible impacts. From sediment plumes, we have heard testimonies saying that it's harmful, that it can travel far beyond a mining site, to the destruction of ecosystems that take centuries to regenerate, if they recover at all. These are environments we still do not fully understand. In the testimonies earlier, it was stated that there are newfound species that are small in population, but they, for us to care for it, then they can multiply. Yet we are being asked to accept permanent damage in exchange for uncertain benefits. Now, I don't know how we can actually quantify fully and justify destroying our seabed or ecosystem. There's a lot at stake. No matter how much economic gain is there for us to consider, I think a permanent, irreversible destruction is something we truly need to consider. You know, we are stewards of our environment, and I think we owe it to the next generation, not just us, not just our community, but to the next generation and far beyond, to preserve what we have, what we were blessed to have. I'm going to put it down in a simple, a more simplified equation. When we cut a tree, we have the capability to replant hundreds more to replace a tree that we cut. When we fish out, when we fish for catch, no matter how much we take out from the ocean, we can actually replace it through hatchlings. But when we destroy, when we mine our seabed, how long do we have to wait to replace the damage? Irreplaceable, permanent, potentially permanent damage. No amount of money or economic gain can actually replace that damage. So think about how, and that's the reason why I fully support this resolution. And that's the reason why I put my name. And I thank the author for the invitation to co-sponsor it. That's the very reason, because I'm worried, I am concerned of the irreplaceable, permanent damage that it can happen around our environment and our ecosystem. Not only that it can poison our water, but there's a lot of things that we need to be worried about. Anyway, I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to thank again the author for the invitation. I'd like to thank all my colleagues who step up to the plate. And I'm hoping that all my other colleagues will come together and come to a unified front. Thank you to everyone, and Sidus Masi, Madam Chair.
Sidus Masi, Senator Calvo. Vice Speaker Tony Ada.
Thank you, Senator Terlaje, for chairing this public hearing on Resolution 132-38. And here we are again 5 years later after the initial resolution by Senator Perez in 2021 to put a moratorium on this deep sea mining. And as you know, the deep sea mining here in this Marianas region is driven by the U.S. needs for critical materials. And it faces major concerns over our ecosystem damage, you know, and more especially the lack of scientific understanding, the threat to indigenous culture and fisheries, and uncertain economic viability. Yet the benefits centered on securing U.S. supply chains, but we can argue that these risks outweigh the gains. What are the irreversible destructions of fragile deep sea habitats, the loss of unique biodiversity, disruption of food webs, the release of toxic chemicals, and creation of massive sediment plumes that can travel far, impacting fisheries and midwater ecosystems throughout our region here? We have a limited understanding of deep sea ecosystems. Makes predicting impacts very difficult, with calls for pauses until impacts are better understood. The fears of mining repeats patterns of exploitation in the Pacific, favoring military and commercial interests over our local communities. And what would that impact be to our local communities? uncertain returns due to volatile mineral prices, growing recycling and alternative sources on high costs, with some studies suggesting that the profits would be very minimal. And to our islands and to the Marianas, perhaps there'll be no profit whatsoever, all losses. And I think the other part here is the regulatory framework for commercial deep-sea mining in U.S. waters is still developing and raises questions about overall oversight. Well, Madam Senator and Chairperson for this public hearing, thank you again for introducing this resolution and inviting us to be co-sponsors. And we look forward to hearing this resolution on the bill, and hopefully that the Speaker will be able to look for a time beneficial to ensure that us as a body, I mean, it's very far and few in between that you ever see a united front with the administration or representative Congress here in the legislature being unified, and more especially those in the CNMI also looking at banning this type of deep sea mining in our region. And I agree with the retiring speaker, the senator, who said that perhaps maybe this resolution should go a little bit further and also sent to those in the region of Micronesia with the FSM and Palau, so that they can get input and perhaps have input placed in before the January 12th deadline. But thank you, Senator Terlaje, for introducing this, and we look forward to moving forward. Thank you.
Vice Speaker, and thank you also for your pledge for continued oversight of this matter in your committee. Speaker Blas.
Thank you very much, ma'am, and thank you for all who provided testimony today. You know, this hearing, and I appreciate that the author of the resolution, you know, would due diligence as well as tenacity to make sure that we have this hearing. We have a January 12th deadline that is still looming, and it is all our hope that that deadline is extended. In that vein, however, that's the purpose and the reason why she wanted to move with this hearing, so that in hopes that we can have something formal to be able to present in this deadline. It is my duty and responsibility as the Speaker to be able to, for lack of a better term, ensure that there's justification and there's a real need and a reason to be able to move forward with the legislative process that will formalize the resolution. I will tell you that while the resolution itself and its language provides all the necessity to declare an emergency, to have a session, the testimony that was provided today accentuated it and validated it, as well as put more meaning to it. So with that, I will assure this body, as well as the community, that this legislature will convene a emergency session to be able to address this and hopefully get this ready on Friday morning at 9 a.m., giving the committee, giving the Senate a good enough time, and the public, to please provide your testimony so that a report can be submitted and provided for the hearing. So I assure you, Madam Chair, that barring any other disaster, if you will, this will be a priority, and the emergency session will take place on Friday at 9 a.m. Thank you very much.
Speaker Blas. Sir, I see you, and I'm going to recognize you as soon as Senator Perez is finished. Is that okay? Never mind. Please proceed.
Half a day. I guess you all know me. Well, this will probably be my last time to appear and to speak. I'm dying, and I don't care. What's to care for? This, beautiful. But they're gonna do what they wanna do. They're gonna do their ocean mining here because we lack the confidence to make a major step. We're U.S. citizens. You put your hand on a Bible and you swear to uphold the Constitution, yet not one of you can vote for president. So how can you be a U.S. citizen? That's one. Two, whatever I say, please do not believe me, because I don't have money, and money is more important. We let our people die and suffer because we can't survive without America. This ocean mining is bull. Throw it away. You want to mine the ocean? Mine the water. It has all the minerals. I learned that in high school. Two, tourism. Where's GVB? Tourism. We can increase tourism to up to 10 million a year from Guam to Bagan Island for the simple reason of the lost continent of Mu. Like I said, please do not believe me. Go into Google Earth, get the camera, get hold of that camera, and you can see all the construction that is under that water. You mine that water, you mine that ocean floor, there it goes. You're destroying an artifact, a precious site. Now, to make it even more realistic, 4 countries in the world, and these are countries that are far older in government control than Guam. Egypt, Mayans, the first American Indians in America, and China. That's 4. They all claim their origins. They claim that they originated from the mountain range of the crescent moon. Now, you have all of those factors in place. Why aren't we looking at that? Why aren't we looking at that? We can promote instead of ocean liners with submarine access. Tourism. Build up tourism like nobody's business. And we can survive. We can rid of this island of termites. So agriculture can grow. Because we can clean this island up of those pests that was brought in or multiplied by the millions and is destroying our island. Our agriculture, our fishing industry can grow. And the beauty behind that, if we acquire independence, which we won't, because we can't survive without America, America owns this island. They'll do what they want. Look at the Marines. They build up, they clean the area up and build up the base. And what did we do? How many times did we protest against that? How many refusals or no? Did America listen? Did the legislature, the governor, anybody stop it? No, it grew. They built. And now it's a factor. It's under General Blanche's name now. What happened to us? Who are we? We don't have ownership of our island. This is the mountain range of the crescent moon. This is the origins of the human race, the lost continent of Mu. And you can see it in Google Earth in the camera. We need to build up on ourselves and build up our confidence in ourselves to take control of this island. We need to unite Guam, Luta, Sai, Pantinian, because it goes all the way up, the lost continent of Mu, and I freaked out. Because you know me, I've been promoting independence, I've been talking about this and that. It took a Howley girl to show me that I was always right. To Google Earth, I saw we opened the computer, we saw the camera, I freaked out. There's a lot of things down there. That's why I'll promote, instead of ocean mining, and throughout the world, ocean mining is not a good thing. People have been destroyed. Here in Guam, it's easy because already the people have been destroyed. We're dependent on foreign rule because since 1695, we have been forced to depend on foreign rule. And it started with the Spanish, actually the church, because the Jesuits were in charge. So, what are we going to do? What are you guys going to do? Nothing. Because why? Oh, we can't survive without America. Howard, stop that. Because you all know me, I'm Yankee, go home. I promote independence. I believe in ourselves. Imagine if we had confidence. We invented the first ever non-tacking sailing vessel, and that's the Sackman. We invented that, nobody else, and there's still nobody that can do that. We invented the first armor-piercing bullet, the Atupak. It penetrated metal and bone and killed the Spanish. And then the Spanish got smart, and it hasn't ended. They got us to kill each other. Now, you want to start a business? Good luck. Because even your own family and your own friends will tell you to go find a job. Who are you trying to be? So, America and the ocean mining corporations, they're going to do what they want. And not one of you is going to stop them, which is very sad. You guys are making what so much? You're living good. Me, I can't even afford medical bills. I got a prescription there for my heart. I can't afford it. That's why maybe I'll just die right here. Who cares? I can't afford the medicine. I don't have money. I'm even lucky to be here. It was the vice mayor of Jigu that gave me money so I can come down here to testify. Who's going to help me? We don't care no more about our own. We call ourselves Chamorros. Chamorro? It's a Spanish word, or tautomotnes. It's like I said, don't believe me. Go find out. You all know how to do research. Go find out how I'm lying. That's the beauty behind my words. Don't believe me. Origins of the human race, which is a tourist attraction, because look at those 4 countries I mentioned. How much tourism are they getting a year? So many, right? And Guam, we're not even a million again. We succeeded in going 1.8 million? Now we don't even have 1 million tourists. What happened to Ipao, Caoutchouc? Nothing. There's nothing anymore. What happened to the language? Nothing. We look. Talk to the young people. Do they know the language? No. What is there for us when we're our worst enemy? And I know my words hurt, but like I said, Don't believe a single thing I've said. But instead of ocean mining, you want to mine the water. The water has all the minerals, the gold, the silver, all of that. But they don't have the heart, and we don't have the brains anymore. Who cares? It's sad. It's very sad. Here we are speaking. I was proud of that guy that was here speaking in the language. How many of you understood? And how many of the listeners out there understood what he said? See, those are the questions that are vital to make improvement. We need to learn. We need to learn to build up confidence. When it comes to our own, do it. You know, when I heard people go, even my sisters, why is all this non-native people living better than us? We allow it because we're our worst enemy. Start your own business and watch out. Go, your family, your so-called friends. Go get a job. We've been colonized. We need to remove colonization out of our beliefs and out of our brains and use it to better ourselves. Because there's nothing wrong with us. We're the first human being on this planet. This is the origins. And I know you guys don't want to believe that too, because he's against America. That's the sad thing about it. Thank you.
Sidus Masi, Senor Howard Hemsing, I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you here today. Sidus Masi and Sidus Masi Loqui to Vice Mayor Pedro Blas. Senator Sabina Perez.
Sidus Masi, Senator Terlaje, and Sidus Masi Howard, very impactful ending to this hearing. Yes, I do want to also empathize that, you know, part of our indigenous experience has been the marginalization and dislocation from our lands. And this deep sea mining is a continuation of that, you know, that disempowerment of our local people. But what I believe this resolution does, it brings agency to our people. And as we saw today, we saw a united front, which gives me a lot of hope that we can overcome this challenge, as well as many of the challenges that face us today. I do agree that what was stated with Senator Taitague, that, you know, we need to look to Julian Uggan and his firm, as well as in pushing forward the United Nations mechanisms to address this. Guam is also part of the Pacific Blue Line, the Pacific Parliamentarians Alliance on Deep Sea Mining, and I know Julian Uggan has connections to many of the members there. They've been on top of this for many years, and that's where I became involved to stop the commercial leasing. Unfortunately, the International Seabed Authority went the other way, and now we're here today, which doesn't mean that the fight doesn't stop. We must continue to fight this commercial leasing. I believe with every problem, we have to address it in multiple ways. And so United Nations, this resolution itself calls upon the United States, the leaders of the United States, to put a stop or put a pause on this RFI, and which I strongly agree. There are other things that were stated today in regards to the NEPA process. So this is something that we as residents of this island are very familiar with the military projects. And this project itself is also something that falls under NEPA, which we haven't seen. And so that is something that we need to push forward. The Coastal Zone Management Act, that is also another angle in regards to you know, putting a pause and addressing the issues that come with deep sea mining. There was talk about sustainable sourcing, and that to me is the solution. You know, the demand that is driving this is geopolitical in nature. And so if there are, you know, means where we can push for sustainable sourcing of materials, what was mentioned by Howard is we can mine the waters, and that's something that some of the scientists, I think, have there are possibilities with that. And so I also want to thank, all the members, Patehi Guahan. They were the ones that brought the call to action on this and brought the scientists here on Guam and to talk about the RFI and the impact that it has on Guam. And so I also want to highlight the point that, Brent Tibbetts mentioned, that our reef fish actually originate from the waters east of us, in which deep sea mining would have an impact. So it would have a foreseeable impact on our coral reefs, which is one of the highlights and assets of our island. Guam is blessed with that resource, and not many islands and nations have that. And so when we talk about our name Guahan, is we have. And so what deep sea mining does, it is an existential threat to our cultural identity, to our existence as human beings, as well as existential threat to the global community, considering climate change, the impacts to climate change, considering the impacts to oxygen, and many irreversible impacts that scientists are now coalescing and speaking out against. And so I really want to thank all the members of the legislature for their support and ensuring that we are going to move forward with this expeditiously. And thank you to Speaker for holding a special, an emergency hearing so that we can get the comments in before the deadline. For those that spoke from the diaspora, you have a voice and you have a very important role. In Congress, there is a bill that would prohibit deep sea mining. And we need your support. We need your voice, not only in providing comments to BOEM, but we need your support in providing comments to the Congress that this bill is critically important to the lives of us as well as to the lives of you, because, and there's no need for this, because there are ways to sustainably source materials that are considered geopolitically valuable. So I want to thank, again, the community. If you can reach out to all your networks, the answers within our community and our networks, we need every one of your connections, your intelligence, your heart, to making sure that we are successful in stopping this. Siduos Masi.
Siduos Masi, Senator Perez, again, for your leadership on this and for those very, very excellent recommendations. I did see that resolution or that House bill and was not sure how to incorporate that here. So I'm so very glad that you found an excellent way and asking help from all of those in our community and our diaspora. I want to thank again those who have created comment workshops, including Patehi Guahan, Tano Tasis and Toru Marianas, the Commonwealth 670, the CNMI government for holding their town halls that we have been able to watch thanks to Mariana's Press. And all those who submitted written testimony, including Vanessa Story, Christopher Catano, Manny Cruz, Dr. Elsa de Melner, biologist at UOG, the National Association of Social Workers Guam chapter, and in particular, the Center, there is a coalition of the Center for American Progress, the Micronesia Climate Change Alliance, and Hitalik who submitted a petition, and this is still ongoing, and they've submitted it to us. It had over 1,000 signatures from Guam and the CNMI. Siduos Masi for all your work in this regard. I'm forever grateful for those who testified today and for the work that so many of them have done in bringing this science, legal, and community impacts to our attention, and for my colleagues for also highlighting and bringing attention to this matter, and for the governor's office and congressman's office as well, and most especially to Speaker Blas for fast-tracking this on the emergency session for tomorrow. With that, I'm going to conclude this hearing in just great appreciation for the input, the perspectives, and the action by our community in Guam to protect our seabeds, our economy, our community, our culture, our future, really, for those who we have been entrusted to protect it for, and to do all that we can, even despite what some have testified to, our political status, the impediments to our protecting our seawaters. We are going to continue to fight to do this. Again, I'm going to accept written testimony until tomorrow, 12 noon, so that we can compile that testimony. That's January 8th, so we can compile the testimony for the emergency session on the following day. You can submit your testimony to Senator Terlaje Guam at gmail.com or deliver it here to the Guam Congress building before the deadline. This public hearing is now adjourned. The time is 11:25 a.m. Si Dios más y todos.